Okay, just going to is this. Right. Right. All right, I believe we can actually start. Good afternoon, everyone. Right. Okay, so in today's class, we are going to be looking at how to administer Azure resources.
Right.
We are going to be talking about different tools that we can actually use
All right, I believe we can
to manage our
actually start.
resources. Uh,
Good
give me,
afternoon, everyone. Right.
give me a minute. Okay, that's fine. Now, so we are going to look at different tools that we use in managing resources in Azure. We are going to be leveraging on the portal, which is most of us are actually used to that now. We are also going to be leveraging on the Cloud Shell in Azure, where we are able to manage our resources using, the PowerShell environment, and also the CLI, all within the Cloud Shell. We're also going to look at tools like ARM template, which is one of the tool when you want to leverage on infrastructure as a code to, so that's what we're going to be looking at today. But before we proceed, do you guys have any question from the previous classes? Thanks, Ochaya, again, for joining this class. I appreciate you. Okay, so any question before we
No worries.
jump into these? All right, brilliant. Okay, so let's just look at what we have today. What are the learning objectives? So the what we're going to be looking at, like I said, we are going to be looking at how to configure Azure resources with different tools, and what are these tools that we are going to be leveraging on the Azure portal, PowerShell, Bash, all within the Cloud Shell within Azure environment. We're also going to look at infrastructure as a code to, how do we deploy resources using templates, maybe by leveraging on ARM templates, or you even want to go a step above these. You want to look at Terraform, OpenTofu, Chef, all these tools that we can actually use in deploying. But the good thing is, once we are done with the ARM template, maybe not really for this particular course, we are just going to talk about it. I think when we finally get to the DevOps class, we are going to go in depth. So for now, at least you understand the concept, and that is what this particular objective is for. So this is what we're going to be looking at today. Um, so let's go ahead and start with how to configure your resources using the portal, the PowerShell, and the CLI. So what do we have under that particular module? we are going to compare all these tools and why we need one over the other. Why is one suitable for us? We are going to look at the demonstration. How do we manage these resources by leveraging on Azure portal, and also how do we do this if we are to leverage on the PowerShell or Bash environment within the Azure Cloud Shell space. Then we'll just do our learning recap. So let's start with that. So the first thing, like I said, is to compare these tools. Now we've got three tools there. As you can see, we've got the Azure portal, we've got the Azure Cloud Shell. Under the Cloud Shell, we can actually leverage on the Bash or the PowerShell, and we've got the Azure PowerShell and CLI. If you do not want to do this from the Cloud Shell environment, maybe you want to have, typically you have got PowerShell on your Windows machine if you are leveraging on Windows, and also if you have got like any Linux workstations, Bash will be like an environment that comes with that, the scripting environment that comes with that. Oh my word. Okay, you guys was it. Just hold on. I'm just gonna share this. Oh my word. Just give me a minute. I'm trying to see what screen am I sharing. A minute, please. Uh, so, what can you see, guys? Okay, I want to be sure of which of the screen you guys are seeing. I've got three screens there. Yeah. Okay. That's lovely. Then. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Sam. Okay. So here, as you can see here, we've got different tools that we can leverage on when it comes to managing these resources. We've got the portal, we've got the Cloud Shell, we've got the Azure PowerShell or CLI, which is cross-platform. You can also have PowerShell on a Linux machine. All depends on what you really want. But like I said, you can do these within the Azure environment, within the portal, where Microsoft has actually embedded the Cloud Shell, and within the Cloud Shell, you can either switch between the Bash or PowerShell. Now, so what are the things that we can actually do? All these things is just for us to be able to manage our resources, and that's the common goal. But we leveraging on Cloud Shell or Azure PowerShell or CLI, what we are trying to do is to create those infrastructures, by running some scripts. And in this case, what we are saying is we want to automate the process. We don't want to go there and start creating. Let's say we want to create a virtual machine now. For me to create a virtual machine, there are some other resources I need to create alongside that virtual machine. I need a virtual network. Within the virtual network, I need a subnet. Optionally, I can create an NSG, within that particular resource group also, and attach it to the subnet or attach it to the NIC card of that virtual machine. Or I can still create a routing table, if I want to be the one to how will I put this? If I want to um I would say route those traffic to a next hub that will be declared for me. So if I want to have that my traffic, I want to make sure that it's coming from this particular resource and it's going to this particular resource. I do not want the Microsoft routing. I want to declare my own routing. I can create a route, and still attach it to that particular virtual network. So aside that, there are other things also, because I'm creating a virtual machine, a lot of all those things need to come into play. I can still create like a public IP address, attach it to it, and I do not want to do that. I just want the script to go in there and perform the magic, deploy those. Once I just click on run script, then everything will be created automatically for me. Even when I've got every all those commands within the script, that's what they're going to be doing. You can read it, you know what it's going to do, you know. But for the Azure portal, if you leverage on that, you will be the one to manually create those resources. So it's either you are, you know, attaching it to an already created virtual network, or you are still leveraging on a new one. So you have to do it manually. So that's actually the difference when it comes to this. So yeah, you've got visual interface. If you are learning leveraging on the Azure portal, you can view and manage those resources. You can see them, you know, you can visualize those resources. You have this unified org, you know, for training and documentation. So every resource you know you are on, it can actually still take you to like a learning profile or like a learning link where you can actually learn about that particular resource. So I'm just not going to continue reading this from that particular script. So I'll rather just go to the portal um, and show you how this actually looks like. This is not the first time you guys are actually logging into the portal. I believe so. But let me log into the portal and let's see how, you know, the Azure portal looks like, the embedded cloud shell, and also how we can actually leverage on the Azure PowerShell and CLI. So this is what it looks like. So you can see these are some of the stuff that I created. So you might just be seeing some recent resources, but for you, it's going to be this clean if that is the first time you are leveraging on this. That is the first time you're logging into the portal. Let's say you just got like a new subscription and you've not even deployed, you've not even worked on any of those resources, so it's going to be as clean as it is. But once you start deploying resources, you can see you can have like a recent resources, or some recent resources you've worked on within this particular space, and you can also customize this. And that's one very good thing about the dashboard here. So these are some common resources that when you log into the portal you're going to see. So as you're using those resources, they're going to start coming here. So the more you use those resources, it will be added as one of the resource. You can actually click from here. So aside that, if you click on this, you can see on the left hand side also. Once you click on this particular button, you can see different resources. These are actually pinned resources. But if you feel like there is one resource that is actually missing from here, you can go ahead and search for all those resources. Like if I click on all services, it takes me to all the other resources in they are categorized within this particular blade, and from there I can actually pin those resources. So you can see all the resources that you can actually deploy within the Azure environment. Based on category, you have the compute, where you have the virtual machine, some other resources also. You have got analytics, you have got containers, all these resources related to container deployment, be it Kubernetes, container registry, and the likes. You can see the database, you can see resources related to DevOps, So depending on the kind of resource that you want to deploy, or even for the identity, if you want to create like a B2C tenant, if you want to work on external identity, if you want to create enterprise application, you can see everything from here. And if I just feel like, oh, that particular resource is a resource I mostly use, what I'm just going to do is I can come here and pin this resource. Once I mark this as favorite, it's going to be added on that particular here. It's going to be added here. Where is it? Analytics is what I just did. So I added it as favorite already. What's going on? Analytics service. Yeah. So you can see it here. If I do, maybe manage Prometheus also, and I make it favorite. If I click on this also, is going to come here. So it all depends on how often you use all those resources. So that's the part of the resources. There are some things I would love to also show you guys. So on the portal, aside the fact that you can visualize your resources also, here is where we have the cloud shell. But before we go to the cloud shell, here you've got different icons also. This one for notification. If you are deploying or creating anything or deleting anything within the portal, you are going to get like an activity log here. So you can click on here to get the recent activity that you just performed. So here, not just the one you performed, if there is anything going on within the tenant also, you are going to be notified. Yeah, this is telling me the resource, my subscription, I've got only £16 left on that particular subscription. So I can go in there and get more, more uh maybe logs, just to check what activity, has been going on, what has been consuming my credit, and try to remove if there is actually one resource that is consuming it, or what if I need to perform any other action. Here we've got another button or another icon where all the tenant that you've created within, or all the tenants where your user account belongs to. You can actually switch tenant from here. So your user account can be added to multiple tenants, meaning your user account can be added to multiple organizations. You can only have one parent organization, and which is where your user account is created from. Yes, that's the parent organization. However, you can be invited to other organizations for collaboration purposes. So if you want to switch to a different organization, you can come here by clicking on that particular icon, then click on the switch button, and this takes you to the tenant that you want to switch to. Aside that also, what you can do is every time you log into the portal, you want to have like one particular directory that you log into, regardless of the last one you logged into. So here I've I've selected my startup directory to be IT360NG. If I log into this tech talk dev, and the next time I'm logging in again, it's not going to redirect me to this particular tenant. It's just going to take me back to this tenant. You can also change it. If I click on here and I scroll down and it says startup directory, I can say last visited. If you want to have the last visited directory, so that means if the tech talk dev was the last one I logged into, the next time I'm coming into the portal, if I type in portal.azure.com, it's just going to take me back to the last visited. But you can also select a directory that the one you want to log into by selecting that particular startup directory from here. So a lot of things, you can also customize this. If I want something darker, or if I want to make it auto, you can actually do that from here. You can expand, you can do the fly out, or you want to dock it. So it all depends on what you really want. But I'm just going to make this light mode. And that's that. Regions, you can change that, informations, a lot of things that you can actually do within the tenant or within the portal. So if you had to do that within the PowerShell or using by leveraging on AIC, yes, you can also do it, but you would need to have like a template that will go in there to that you run every time that makes those changes. Yep, that's fine. So I was talking about the fact that for everything you want to, maybe you are confused at some point and you want to raise a ticket. So you can do that from the portal here by clicking on this particular icon. It all depends on where you want to raise the ticket to. If you ask the community, it's going to take you to the Azure community, which I'm also a proud member. When you ask question on here, I might even be the one to respond back to you. Well, just joking. But so a lot of things there. You can get the quick start center. It tells you about Azure. It shows you what and how do you manage the Azure environment. So you get some if I click on start, It's just going to tell me what are some of the things I need to do. If you want to get started with Azure, if you want to create a free account, if you want to architect a solution, if you want to manage and organize your resource, you can see the quick start, and each, you can see this. All these will last for 30 minutes. All these will last for 20 minutes. It all depends on what you want, so you can go in there and do this, do this. If you want to give a feedback back to Microsoft, you can actually do that from the portal. So we'll be talking about how you can manage your resource, how you can switch, how you can raise tickets to Microsoft. Now, the last one will be, I've talked about the fact that should in case you do not want to manually um, or manually manage those resources, and you want to automate them maybe by leveraging on scripting, you can actually click on this icon, and on this icon, once you click this icon, it takes you to what we call the cloud shell environment. And this cloud shell, it gives you the leverage, to put in PowerShell command or bash command, depending on which one you actually use to. But before you can actually do this, you need what we call a subscription within a tenant. Now, within that subscription, is where this shell will create its own storage account. And why we always have a storage account is the fact that same way on your PowerShell, if you have actually used PowerShell on your Windows machine, you will see that within your C drive, there will be a PowerShell folder, and within that particular folder, you've got all the modules. So we download modules, like we have different modules. When you start working on PowerShell now, you will understand what modules does. So when you want to run any command, for any command that you want to run, it has to be downloaded. It has to be within that particular system. You have to be stored somewhere. The PowerShell environment needs to be able to check that whatever you are typing in here has been installed within that particular system. Is actually there within the folder. You know, So that's it. So here, so the storage account is where these modules are actually stored, and that's why you need like a storage account. When you are, if you are actually going to leverage on on this particular cloud shell. And like I said, currently I'm actually on PowerShell. This is PowerShell. If I want to switch back to Bash, if I'm used to Bash, like, how do I know it's PowerShell? You can actually see this is just going to give you um, um, some of you can see the PS that says it's PowerShell. So what are some of the PowerShell scripts I can actually run? I can have something like, because the way PowerShell works, those commands are actually in just give me a minute. Those commands are actually in verb and noun format. What do I mean by that? When I want to do anything, let's say I want to get subscriptions that are within this tenant, you know I will do get is the verb. This is what I'm trying to do. What are you trying to do? That's verb. Then then I will have an hyphen. Then the next thing that follows that hyphen will be the noun. So what are you trying to get? So I'm trying to get subscriptions within this tenant. I do not need to type this again. I've got easy subscription. Yep. And I do this, and it's just going to list everything within this particular tenant. I can do that to create a new subscription also. If I want to create a new virtual machine, if I want to anything I want to do. But for now, I'm just going to be using the get. So if you want to do, or when you want to create a new resource, in Azure, we've got this documentation, where you can actually leverage on, that shows all the PowerShell commands. I would see if I could, get it now. If you want to create a new virtual machine, now all you need to do is just to type in new. So you can see new, and this is what makes the cloud shell within the PowerShell more better. Though you can also do this, if you are leveraging on the PowerShell within your system, you can also have make sure that it's automated. Any command you want to type, it auto give you those commands. Now you can see that this autocomplete actually works. So immediately I type new, it's actually suggesting, do you want to create a new service bus? I said no way. I say AZ VM. You can see it's telling me yes, you want to create a new VM. And what are some of the things that are needed when you are creating a new resource? You need the name, you need the region. For VMs I need the credentials and or some other things. So this is what I was saying. Now it's always this verb hyphen the noun. So we have new, we have get, you have let's say you want to delete. Now you have delete, whatever you want to do, you have the verb, then whatever what action, that's the action. Then on what resource you want that to perform that particular action. So I'm just going to leave it that way. Let's see, I can get let's say Azure resource group, sorry, AZ resource group, and it's going to list out all the resource group within the tenants. I don't know why my tab is not working. So what this does is it's going to list out every resource groups. I can push this up a little. All the resource groups within my tenant. So within that particular, so you can see we've got that subscription. You can switch subscription also, and you can see the location, the resource ID, the tag, no tag for now, resource group name, and the like. So that's if you are actually leveraging on PowerShell. And why this is also better is the fact that you do not need to start installing modules on your system. You can see I did not have to log in. I did not have to type anything like AZ login or connect hyphen AC account, which is the command. You guys should pretend as if those commands are not there now. I'm just telling you how this. So if you understand the formatting now, those commands are actually available. They are publicly available. So you don't need to cram anything. You can always go there as far as you know what you want to do. So let me even see if I can get those commands. Just give me a minute. So I'm just gonna do it here so that we can see it. So it's not something. Just type in one of those things. Get AZVM. Now it's going to take you there. You can see. Just take me to that get ACVM, and on this side you can see the other ones. This is the AZ PowerShell. Depending on what you want to do, it doesn't have to be the virtual machine itself. I just use that get AZVM to get to this documentation. You can see no matter what I want to do here, I can actually see that now here within this particular get AZVM, you can see the code, what are some of the parameters that I can use. So like I said, you don't need to cram anything. If you want to create a new VM, all you need to do is just to find that new AZVM, which is this. So, and this is what I'll be using to create a new VM. But let's see, to make it easy, I'm just going to quickly create something now, but it's not going to be VM. I'm going to create a resource group. So I'm going to show you how you can actually get that without you cramming, those commands. Those commands, you do not need to cram them. Like I said, I'm just going to go and look for resource. So let's see. Okay, so these are just within AD. Some of them are within AD. I'm looking for the resource group itself. I know what I can actually use, which is the new hyphen AZ resource group, but I want to show you also I'm just going to type it there. Okay, so this is it. I'm just going to type it. I do not know. So let's say I want to create a new resource group, and you can see the command. It just tells you this is how you create a new resource group. We all know that what I need is the name of the resource group and the location of that particular resource group. Then I'll just copy this, take it to my PowerShell script, yeah, or to my Cloud Shell. Just hold on, please. I would attend to you. Then paste it here. Now I'm going to be creating this. So new, you can see this particular resource group has been created. It's succeeded, created in Central US. You can see how fast it is. As against, let's say I want to create RG02, then in Azure I need to go to resource group. Just you see how fast it was. Then let's first look at the one we just created, which is the RG01, right? So I'm just going to look for it here, RG01. So, and you can see it has been created in South Central US, just the same thing that we have here. If I'm to do that within the Azure environment, I need to click on create resource group. You can see, then that loads, then I'll do RG02, then come here, start looking for South Central US, South Central US, then next, then it's asking me, do I want a tag? Then next again, then yeah, and create. You can see the difference between that, automating it, and that's how it is applicable to other resource also. The resource group is nothing, there is nothing in there. And that's why it's a little bit even faster. If you are deploying something like firewalls, that takes a while before it finally deploy. You don't not want to be there, or you were creating a point to site VPN. It's going to take a while, before you are able to even complete that, against when you are leveraging on, those scripting. So you'll get to that point where you want to be comfortable with scripting. But I keep telling people, if that is not what you really want, if you are not, if you are someone that feel like, oh, it's difficult, you want to shy away from it, yes, you will be able to complete your job, but it's better when you learn it. But like I said, those resources are everywhere, those documentations are everywhere. You do not need to cram anything. If you want to do anything, there are documentation you can always refer to, and you can see this actually gave us an example of how the scripts have been used within the portal. Yes, TJ, you can go ahead with your question, please.
Thank you, Baba Femi. This is just me trying to think out loud. There's a popular saying that said, that goes, a good lawyer is not the one that knows all the law, but where to find all the law.
Yeah.
So I just want to ask, yeah, in interview, right? If they ask you, it's fine, you know where to find all this code and scripting or whatever. But if you are asked that, okay, do you know coding or do you know scripting? Can you answer in affirmative and say, yes, I know how to code,
Yes.
even though you don't know them offhand, but you know where to find all the code?
So TJ, you know something.
Yeah.
They also don't they won't expect you to know everything, know all those commands. It's for
Okay.
sure they won't also know all the commands, but there are
Mm,
basic ones that you will know. Like if I
okay.
want to create a VM now, because I've been using it, I know how to just quickly do that. I want to create a new
Yeah.
resource group, I know what and what I need to type. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
But when it comes to you saying, oh, I want to create like point to site VPN, which will, make you create like maybe multiple lines of code, you know,
Yeah.
at that point in time, they might not expect you to have to cram everything. But if I want to create a new VM now, I know, what makes up the VM. I know what are other resources I need to create alongside that VM. It's just for you to have those idea, and that's why
Okay.
when it comes to scripting, scripting interviews or tests now, they won't just give you, oh, write this offhand. There are some things that you can also refer to and just quickly. Not maybe not you browsing the internet,
Mm.
but you know I'm so sure when it comes to scripting tests, they won't give you these something difficult or something, but you just need to have an idea. Ochana, if you want to go, yeah, that's what I can think of. But so it's not something they would require you also to know of, but there are some things that you also are going to know, when you have been using the script and the likes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm seeing something like new resource group, Central US, Operation Return Forbidden. Do you know what forbidden is? You are getting an error. So these are things we'll also start learning. We call them HTTP errors. When you get 403 forbidden, 401 unauthorized, you know. So forbidden, 403 bad request, forbidden, you are not able. Do you have subscription in that particular tenant you are trying to create a resource group within? If you do not have any subscription in that particular tenant, where are you going to create the resource group on? you know or you don't even have permission, even if you have that particular um, subscription. What permission do you have on that particular subscription? So those are things that we look at. So when you get an error, you get error 403, 401, like I said, you know what the issue is just by looking at the status code. Do you understand, Sam? So we'll always get there. You can also say, oh, this is the reason, but for sure is either you don't have a subscription in there or you don't have the permission on that particular subscription. Does that? Yeah. So that's that. So I'm not gonna start talking about this one after the other. I just demonstrated how these things work. So you can see. Okay, so let's just go back there. I think before I just switch over or cut over. Yeah, we've done the one for the PowerShell. I can also switch back to Bash. If yeah, if you are actually conversant or you like Bash more, and when you're leveraging on Bash, the commands are actually different. It's not the noun, it's not the verb, the action, and the now. No. So this one, you start with az. Then the next thing that follows will be the noun. Now, let's say I want to list resources, I want to list subscription, I want to list account within the tenant. So the AZ is the first thing that comes in. Then the next one, the AZ is actually the module. The next one will be, what do I want to perform that particular action on? Now, here, if I say VM, then what do I want to do? Create. This is how the CLI works. So let's see if I do AZ and I type account and I type something like list. So this is just going to list, my account is just going to tell you, my account within that particular environment. So like I said, the way the Bash works, it's a little bit different from the PowerShell. It all depends on what you are used to. But the truth is, if you give me a PowerShell command, I know what to convert this to if I'm leveraging on Bash. Do you understand? The same thing, you can always search this also. If I go in here and I say az vm create, and this is just going to take me to the PowerShell, this the what's again the CLI commands that I can actually use within the Azure environment. You can see everything here. You can see everything here. So it just brings us back to that question from TJ. At some point, you will also understand all these things. You know what is next. You might not be able to, cram everything, but you know some simple commands, but don't shy away from these, and make sure you attend the class, next week, because some people will say, no, I don't like coding. This is going to be so easy if you continue this way. If you are also looking at those commands, every day, it's just like you learning a new language, and you would see that once you start learning this, you see, oh, this coding is not even difficult. It is not even that difficult. Why are we being shying away from it? It's just you understanding the syntax, how you need to put these two in together, and that's it. So you see the people writing 2,000 lines of code. They started from running just one particular line at some point. It's not as if they were actually born with it. So, and funny enough, back in school, then it wasn't as if we used to write these things. Yes, we used to write them, but we used to write them on paper. It wasn't as if we were running them. So, but at some point, you start putting them together, and before you know it, you are also writing 2,000 lines of code. So scripting, if you want to start, Python, PowerShell, Bash, there are good ways to actually start your programming journey. But we'll get there. For people still joining us on this journey, to the DevOps class, we'll surely get there. So that's it. I'm just going to take this off, then we'll continue from where we start. So if you have any question at any point in time, just let me know. I'm just going to skip these. So I'm not going to do this again. I'm so sure you can locate those resources now. All you need to do is just search for the resource, what resource you want to locate. I've showed you how you can actually create ticket also, how you can also customize your dashboard, favoriting some of those services, some of those resources that you work with more. Okay, so this one also, demonstration on the Cloud Shell. How do we access the Cloud Shell? I've showed you how you can access it. Configure storage account from Cloud Shell. All we need to do is either we are leveraging on the PowerShell, or so if we want to configure storage account, if this is PowerShell, all I need to run is going to be the new hyphen AZ storage account. Then I supply the location, then I supply the name of the storage account. Let's say, don't let me just say it. I'm going to just look for storage account from here. I know it's just there, but I'm just going to look for it. So, but let me just go ahead. Storage account should be in S. Yep. So this is storage. Commands. What are commands that we can actually use, to create those storage accounts? I'm looking for new, or let's even start with get. So you can see AZ storage, new storage. This is new. So storage containers, just give me a minute. That is new AZ storage account. If you want to create a storage account, if I just run this is not just going to run. I need those properties, like the name of the storage account, the resource group you want to put the storage account, the location. So you can see at the minimum, there are some things at the minimum that you need to use, and you can see all these things are the properties that goes along that storage account. If I want to create a new storage account now, I pick this guy, then I look at the name, I look at the resource group where you want to, put this guy in, the SKU, and typical example would be within this particular page also. You can see if I want to create a storage account, all I need to run is just new storage account. I'm just going to copy these. So I'm going to switch back to PowerShell, because this is actually a PowerShell command. Same thing if you want to create this using the CLI. All I need to do is just to type in AZ storage, then create. So I'm switching back to PowerShell now. then I'm pasting these. So here I'm saying new storage account, which is new -az storage account. This is what I want to do. Then the resource group where the storage account, because like I said, there is no way you can create a new resource without having to put that particular resource within a resource group, and that's why we need a resource group. Then the next thing is going to be the name of the storage account. What name do you want to give to that storage account? This is what location do you want to have that storage account in, and this is West US. SKU, we talked about these, the LRS, GRS, and the like. So what type of storage account do you want to create? Now I'm saying the standard SKU, the standard GRS, and this one is just for security purpose. If you want to have TLS version, but for now you can decide to create a storage account even without selecting this particular guy. So, and this is how we leverage on PowerShell. So if you have got any questions, let me know. And before, why am I always in a hurry? Just give me a minute. I'm just quickly going to show you some other things on this particular. Now here we can actually manage files within here. Also we can upload, we can download within this particular oh my word, got so many. So we can upload, we can download within this particular Cloud Shell. So if there is a need for you to work on any script and you require a certain file, you can actually upload that file. Yeah, you can also have like an editor, if you do not want to use that particular the one we are using, so you want to take it back to editor mode, so you can see this is like the classic Cloud Shell, not like the one we have. You can see this is like the script. If I upload any of this file, this is where it comes to, and I can actually leverage on those files. I can run my script, just to work on this file. You can also have this configured. A lot of things that you can actually do by leveraging on the Cloud Shell. So, and that's it. Use the cloud editor, which is optional. I just switch back. Like I showed you, you can upload and download file. You can actually explore by switching from PowerShell to Bash and the likes. So the next thing, I'll just continue by moving on to the next module, and within this next module is where we're going to be talking about how you can deploy Azure resources using templates. So we've got this, we talked about the fact that if you leverage on the PowerShell, you are going to automate the delivery of that particular resource. You are going to automate the management of that particular resource. The same way we can actually leverage on what we call the ARM. Now, in Azure, we call this ARM Azure Resource Manager. Now, we talked about the fact that you can actually use the PowerShell, you can actually use the portal, you can actually use the Bash. You can also leverage on some infrastructure as a code tool, which we are going to really focus on when we finally get to our DevOps class. Now, if that is the case, you might have heard of Terraform, Chef, OpenTofu, Pudomi, a lot of them, but you don't need to bother yourself about them now if you haven't heard about them. So at that point, what you are trying to do is to create like a template. Within that template, you are going to see what and what you want to create, what and what you want to do. You can see, it's just like a structure that you have in there, so it makes it easy or easier to manage those resources. Even your PowerShell script, within there you can see what resource you are deploying and the like. So once we start going through this particular module, now you understand, or this particular objective, you understand what I'm talking about. So you have like a template already, And that template, when you want to create a virtual machine, you just go to that template virtual machine and you just push it. So here, this JSON, like I said, all these tools we talked about, be it the PowerShell, be it the Bash, be it even the portal, or be it Terraform and the likes, everything is connected, to the portal. So your deployment, that will always be like an interaction between that PowerShell, between that Bash and the portal. What makes that deployment possible? What is actually between, or we call it plugin? What makes it, or let's say the API now, we call it API. When you have two different application and you want to make them, you want to integrate them, you want to make them work together, so you need what we call the API, the application interface. Now you need that interface. And what's the interface here? The interface is ARM. So every deployment you are doing, even within the portal, you will see deployment in progress is actually leveraging on the ARM. The other tools are also leveraging on the ARM. I'm so sure there is an image somewhere that shows this when we get there. Now, you've got this template already, and every time you want to deploy, all you need to do is just to go to that template, pull out that template, and deploy. A very good example is, let's say I'm going to go back to I'm going to share just give me a minute. I'm going to share my portal again. Now here, I want to deploy a virtual machine, and someone said, oh, there is a virtual machine that has been deployed within this tenant. It's called labs. Can we deploy, that a new virtual machine that's actually like exactly just like the one we already deployed? And that's why we always leverage on what we call the infrastructure as a code. We want to make our infrastructure, deployment from a code. We do not want to manually deploy them. We want to automate the deployment, and we want to have like a code that actually does that. So I've got this lab virtual machine, and you can this stuff I want to show you is actually for all the resources and not just for virtual machine. So even when you want to deploy a storage account, you want to deploy a resource group, you can actually use the same thing. So I want to deploy this particular machine, and all I need to do is just to go to this automation blade, and within the automation blade I can click on the export template. So you can have a template, and every time you want to deploy, all you need to do is just to upload that particular template. I will show you how you can actually upload them with the Azure, and I will show you, maybe you might need to go and work on that, but I'll show you how you can actually deploy also using that template. Say if I want to deploy a new machine now, you can see I can click on deploy, and it's going to deploy almost the same thing I have. I can download this particular template also, you can see. And the good thing is Azure has actually added a new tab, and that's the tab for Terraform. So what this does is going to generate a template for you. Or something failed, I do not have that Terraform, registered. Okay, it's a very good way to see you guys troubleshooting skills. Can anyone see this? What do you feel like I can do? It's straightforward. It's pretty straightforward. Anyone? This is English, oh. It just says resource provider not registered. Please make sure that resource provider is registered. Okay, so let me explain this. So for every resource that we deploy within Azure, they have got what we call the resource provider. So I was talking about the fact that the ARM template is an API, and within this ARM we need those providers. We need what makes that connection possible. So if I want to solve this now, all I need to do is just to get these. Just give me a minute. So there's something we call the resource template. I'm going to duplicate this tab. Oh my word, no, I don't know. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this tab, and I'm going to show you what the resource provider looks like, how you can actually solve this kind of error. So let this open up. So I'm going to go to, okay, why this is loading, I do not need to do it here. I just need to go and look for that subscription. Now, what subscription am I trying to do this on? Okay, so I'll go to the subscription from home. Okay, the subscription is here. You can also search for subscription here or any other resource that you want to create. So for me, I'll rather just search. If I want to create a virtual machine, if I want to create a storage account, I rather search from here rather than going to this to check for this place to check for services. If I want to create a VM, I can actually do that, and that will pop up. So if I click on this MSDN subscription, I go to settings, then I go to resource providers. Like I said, you need to register that. That's just like an API, that makes that deployment possible. So I'm just going to search for this Terraform. It's currently not registered, and that's why I'm not able to get those scripts out. So I'm going to register them. Before you can actually register this, you need to have an owner role on that particular subscription before you can actually do this. So if you go in there and you're getting unauthorized, or this user doesn't have access on this particular, I'm just giving you the hints now that you need to be an owner of that particular subscription to be able to perform this action. Just skip a minute. So let's just wait for this to complete. Sometimes it might take a while. Okay, so I will leave this for now, but I'm just telling you what you can actually do. So here you can see the bicep. Also, bicep is just like a mini ARM template, but it gives you more clarity on what you're trying to do. Now, I'm so sure you can actually read this one. It says these are just parameters. You don't those parameters, but yeah, this is the resource block, and within the resource, what do I want to create? I want to create like a virtual machine, which is within compute. So we want to create a virtual machine, and what will be the name of that virtual machine? What location will you deploy the virtual machine? If you have got any tags, that you have actually added during the deployment of that virtual machine, or even after the deployment of the virtual machine, you can see these are tags. It shows you that this particular virtual machine, the environment where I'm actually using this virtual machine is production environment, and who will be the contact person if you need help with this virtual machine. I've added my email and zones. I'm so sure you guys understand these. When we want to replicate that particular machine, here I'm not using. Okay, so I'm going to ask you guys one particular question here. Yes, I'm leveraging on zone for virtual machine. What are some other replication strategy I can actually have for this particular virtual machine? Currently, I'm actually leveraging on availability zone. What other replication strategy can I have for this particular virtual machine? Anyone?
Region pair. Eliminate a region.
No. Yes, I can deploy to a different region, but that's not what I'm looking for. When you want to create a virtual machine, don't worry. Any other person, I'm going to try creating one now, and you will see what what I was looking for. Any other person? Oh, okay. So I'm gonna click this. I want you guys to visualize it. I'm not creating a virtual machine, but I'm gonna show you because it's gonna come up while trying to create a new virtual machine. Now, availability options. I'm leveraging on the availability zones. You can see the other ones that I can actually use. Specifically, I was looking for the availability set. The availability set. So, guys, what makes up the availability set? Let's say I want to create a new availability set now. What are things that I need to create, that I need to work on? Come on, guys. What's going on? So I'm going to click on that availability set. For me to create a new availability set, I'll come back to ask you guys this question. You can see I'm so sure we talked about the fault domain and the update domains, right? No one is saying anything. Okay, so you can see for us to have availability set, we talked about the fault domains. We talked about the update domains. Yeah, yes, we did, Sam. Can you tell me the difference between this update domain and the fault domain? Anyone? What does the update domain mean? What does the fault domain mean?
Okay, let me just try. So for the domain, when there's a failover, then it will enable you to be able to use a different availability sets. When the primary one is at 40, then update domain, probably there's an update going on the primary zone, then that will enable you to, it will switch you over to. I hope I'm saying the right thing. Thank you.
At least you tried. But
I agree with him.
you agree with what? You bring your own answer. Don't agree.
Okay, so for what's it called? For fault, when there is what's it called? For fault, it more or less looks like maybe when there is a problem with the switch, there is every tendency that virtual machine within the availability set might also have that similar problem. Then for updates, so maybe there is a need to for an update to be done. So because all of those virtual machine are within the availability set, you can easily deploy that update to all of them simultaneously.
Okay, so you guys tried, but that wasn't the answer I was looking for. So there was this job.
Let me give it a try.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, I think the fault has to do with the way I see it. Then when you explain, has to
So I
do
want
with
I want to have something like
having common
collection of yeah.
common power source and network switch. I think you mentioned something around that when you're
Yep.
talking about the
Yep.
for the fault domain.
Yep.
Or for the updates, have to be with the fact that when the update is being done, all the machine sits on the same domain. So the update affects all resources within that group. But you use an example of virtual machine then.
Yeah. So if I'm going to define these, and I was trying to tell you a story, this cost me these two stuff concept I just asked you guys cost me a job in Netherlands. You know, uh, they didn't take me because they felt like I'm missing out on the fundamental. So when you talk about fault domain, this represents you know physical grouping of servers, hardwares within the data center, that shares the same rack. What they do is they share common source of power and network switch. Do you get? Now, when you're creating the availability set, and that's why this is telling you to have at least two fault domains, because no two fault domains will be restarted at the same time. So we have this rack of servers. There, your virtual machine will be deployed there. Then we have another one. In this case, if I select two for domains, that means my server, my virtual machine will be running within one particular for domain and also being replicated to another one. Now, even if there is a problem with one particular rack, because these servers share the same common source and the same power source and network switch. If there's a problem and those servers shut down, those servers go down, my virtual machine will still be working because it's actually on a different fault domain also, replicated to a different fault domain. So I would just say these virtual machines or this hardware, they share, they are on the same rack, they share the same power source and the same network switch. So that's what we go by for domain. So, and that was why I was telling you I want something like collection, like group of, hardware within a data center. Because if you are giving me, it's not as if I did not give a response. I gave a response just like the one you gave now, you guys gave, and it wasn't enough. So to show that you actually know it. And when you talk about the update domain, I'm talking about, a group of, virtual machines or physical hardware that are rebooted simultaneously, you know, maybe for maintenance purposes such as patching, vulnerability patching and the like. So those machines, they get updated at the same time and they are rebooted at the same time. So now, like I said also, no two update domains are going to be, rebooted at the same time. And you can see this is, you can even go there, and this was what I was telling you about Azure, and you can see this also gives us the answer saying, four domains shares a common power source and network switch. And you can see here virtual network, they are restarted at the same time, maybe after a planned maintenance. So, and this is what I'm saying, Azure never restarts more than one update domain at the same time. So for sure, if you have even two update domain, you know that your machine is actually safe. Your machine will always be available based on the high availability SLA that has been promised. Do you guys get? So, and that was what I was talking about. So let me just go back to where we were coming from. Okay, so that's that. Okay, the last thing I wanted to show you guys, I'm so sure I showed you the bicep and the stuff. If I go to templates, I'll show you any template you download from that place. What's this one? Yep. So you can download template and deploy that template by just uploading that template to this deploy a template. Go there, man, go there. Now let's say I want to create a new resource group. They've got some templates you can also leverage on, but if you want to deploy your own, you can, let's say you want to, you want to deploy anyone. Now these are common templates. There is a template when you want to deploy a virtual Linux machine. There is a template already for virtual machine. All you need to do is, you can see everything is there already. You just need to supply the admin username, the resource group where this will be deployed to, and just click and create. And yeah, you can see the difference. I'm not even looking at availability set, availability zones. Everything is actually within the template already. Everything has been done within the template. You can go in there and edit the template. You can even visualize what you are trying to deploy. And this is how the ARM template works. This is how the template actually works. It gives you that option to be able to deploy your machine quickly. You can see this is what's going to happen once you deploy that particular machine. You're going to have like a machine deploy, which is going to be you are going to have a storage account where everything relating to the boot of that machine will be stored to, like activity of the boot. So we call it boot diagnostics. Then you are going to have like network interface card that will be attached to that particular machine. On these, this network interface card is actually, attached to, or associated to this public IP. So your virtual machine will have a public IP, and you're gonna have like this VNet where the machine is associated to. Just give me. Why did I do that? I'm trying to, yes. Then the last thing will now be the NSG. Now you can see the NSG is only associated to the subnet here, you know. So you can also add it to the NIC after this has actually fully deployed. So you can see you can leverage when you leverage on those templates. So they they are they are customized already. You can have your own custom template, and what you just need to is just go there. Instead of every time you want to deploy a virtual machine, you manually do that. This also, you can download those templates, have it on your Visual Studio Code, and every time, or even within your repository like GitHub, like Azure DevOps, and every time you just need to deploy, all you need to do is just, maybe create a pipeline or run it from your virtual studio, just run some commands that would go there and start deploying those machines. So it's easy when you leverage on templates, and when you want to deploy a new template, like I said, all you need to do is just to go to that deploy new template. You can have your own template. If you have your own template already, you can have it here. But if you want to leverage on anyone that is within the Azure environment, you can see all those templates that are within Azure, depending on what you are trying to do, depending on what you're trying to do. So a lot of things. If I want to create a new, management group within my tenants, if I want to create a new role, if I want to create a new resource group, if I want to create a new lock, within the tenants, lot of things that you can actually do here. So you do not need to always go in there manually, or to deploy any of those resources. So you can have this template, and what this gives you, aside the fact that it's quick, you know that you are deploying the same thing. So that's repeatability. It gives you that repeatability, a lot of things, security and the likes. All right, so any question? Because I'm not going to be looking at these one after the other. This is just giving you what the kind of advantage you will get if you are leveraging on templates. So you can have different environments where you're deploying to. It improves that reusable, that repeatability, that, so it reduces manual error, because you have that template, you have that script already configured. You do not need, if you have to go in there and manually deploy that particular virtual machine, you might like, what was the size of this virtual machine? Was it configured using availability set for the availability option? Well, was it availability zones? Was it VMSS? And you keep doubting, you might go in there and just add maybe 1 TB as against the 500 GB that you are actually looking at, or 512 GB that you are actually looking at. So it reduces manual, error prone, and it's repetitive tasks. You can see you express those requirements via code. Now your infrastructures are just like code, just like your application code. You know what you want to deploy, and you can have like modules. And when we talk about modules, those are something we repeat. You create a virtual network every time. So you've created like a script to say, when a new virtual network is going to be created, I know we need a resource group. I know we need location. All those locations you've declared them within the particular module. So every time you want to deploy, all you need to do is just to run that thing, and it knows which subscription to pick, even the names, which location this will be deployed to, and the like. So you can create different modules for repeatable tax purposes. And this was what I was trying to show you the other time. I showed you the one for the bicep, where we are able to read, when we create a resource, what resource we want to create, what location we want to put it. The same thing, this is the format for ARM template. The ARM template uses, what we call the JSON, and that JSON is a collection of key value pair. where you have, when we talk about the key value pair, this is schema, this is key, and what is the value? This is the value. This is variables. What's going to be the value? This is a resource. Under resources, where we're going to declare everything that we need to declare. Let's see this particular example. Okay, so by we just exploring, when we want to do this, we have the admin password, admin username. When you're creating a virtual machine, you need to add, you guys even saw it when I was trying to leverage on the template. So you need to add your admin username, and you need to add, the admin password. What would be the admin within the parameter? Because this is parameter. Within the parameter now, we have like type. So when we have something like strings tells you that you can add any alphanumeric, value to this particular thing. So your admin password doesn't have to be Femi only. It can be Femi 21, 22, something like that. And this shows you the metadata is just like, tell me more about this particular parameter. So you can have within the metadata where you have the username for that particular machine. Same thing goes with, the admin password. The bicep was the one I showed you, and that was why I said the bicep is actually the mini version, or advanced version of the ARM template. Now this is simpler in terms of the syntax. Now you can see, you can easily read what you want to do. Here shows that a storage account resource needs to be created. Now, so you can see the resource. What resource are we trying to create? Storage account. Now, what is the name of that particular storage account that we want to create? What location do we want to create this storage account in? If we have got some tags that we want to attach to that particular storage account, what kind of storage account do we want to create? And the last one is the SKU. The other one we saw standard GRS, which is geo redundancy option. But for this one is LRS, which is the locally redundancy storage account. So yeah, you can see how it's easy it is to read these things. Any question before we go ahead?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
My question is, so we have, sorry, we have three options to actually make that, to when we were showing us that industry where you see we can copy, we can deploy, and we can
I
download,
can't
and that was
even
what we
hear you
saw.
properly.
Oh, sorry. Let's continue. I will just find a way around.
No, no, go ahead, please. Just ask it again.
Okay, my my question is about where I am. I can't make noise. I'm sorry. It's basically about, sorry. There was a screen you showed us earlier on when you were showing us the ERM templates
Yep.
where we can actually copy, deploy. Where you were talking about the when we went to the setting on automation, then export templates, where we have the options of we can either copy, deploy, or
Yes,
download
yes, yes,
in
yes.
different formats.
Yeah.
In different formats. So what I want to say is that can we deploy directly from there? Because what I'm
Yes,
asking
yes,
is,
you can deploy
I can
directly
see
from
that
there.
there are different formats, and in my head I'm wondering. So all those formats appear differently. So at the point of deployment, how do we know if it's going to be on either of the cloud share environments? Because the commands looks different for both. So I'm just wondering, how do we
Yeah, no,
know
at that point, I don't
when we want
don't
to deploy?
don't you don't need um to wonder. At that point, you are just trying to redeploy. Regardless of what is going to leverage on. At least what you are trying to do is just to deploy using a template. Do you understand? But the other option you can see there is not going to be deploying. Just hold on. I will show you what I mean, because it all depends on which option you have selected. You can see the tags. It's just going to redeploy based on the option you've selected. But what people do is we don't deploy from there. We don't deploy from there. We'll rather just download that particular stuff if possible, and try to deploy using that particular downloaded option. Do you get what I'm saying? Let me just take you to one of these guy. I know what you're saying. Um, so export template under automation. Yeah. So you are saying if I want to redeploy, right? I'm so sure this is yeah. So you can see I can select any of this option. So whatever option I've selected, do you understand? Whatever option I've selected, so you're just going to redeploy using that particular option. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So you can
So
see
if we download,
API, but this one, if I want to download this option, this is what this guy is actually for. So you can, so if I want to redeploy using it of this option also, I just select the. So you can see I've been able to do this. After installing my Terraform, you can see the code, the Terraform code. So I can redeploy using this. Now you can see the option to redeploy using the Terraform is not there. um, let's see, you can see it's not there within so because some things are still missing, but I can download that, and use these to deploy this particular machine, maybe via Virtual Studio within GitHub or anything. So the option, it all depends on which one you've selected. You are going to be deploying with whichever option you've selected. Does that make sense now? So you can see the exported option. I've exported the Terraform to my system, and I can actually now deploy using that particular exported template. Even when I can also deploy from here. If I select this, if I select deploy, it's going to be deploying using the ARM template. Does that make sense?
yes, thanks. Yeah. Mostly, there are different options of deploying actually. So the Azure is the only one that works on this platform, but those other options can be used on other environments outside. Um,
Yep.
okay, outside Microsoft. Right, thanks.
So that's that. This is just telling you about the quick start template I showed you guys the other time. Let's say you want to deploy, um, you can search for the quick start template, and see the options that you want to use. You can also go to the deploy a custom template, and within there, like I showed you, and select the template that you want to leverage on. So lot of things, lot of options. You can play around with these, see different options. You can try to read those, and if you're not able to, there are a lot of channels to reach me, be it on LinkedIn, on YouTube, if you have got my number also, you can actually just chat me. So let's look at
When is a good time to contact you? When is a good time to contact you when one has questions, so we
yes,
don't.
Abby. Okay.
So
So
yeah,
this. So we're done. The next one is going to be the lab itself. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to at this point, I'm so sure you guys would have created your lab environment, your Azure environment. If you have not done so, try to do these. What I'm going to do next week, and we've got 4 labs now. The lab one, the lab two, the lab 3A, and lab 3B, which is what we're looking at today. Um, I will need you guys, one of you guys, to share his or her screen and take us through the lab. based on what it's going to be easy. I'm so sure it's something you can actually do. Let me even go to the lab environment now and show you guys. So don't I know some of you might not want to come to the class next week, but so like I said, this is nothing. Now you can see this was the first lab that we did, which is the manage Microsoft Entra ID. And here what you're going to be doing is just to create a user one, assign that user one to the job title for that user one is going to be IT lab administrator. We are going to be inviting a different user, and also have that job title for that invited user to be IT lab administrator. Create a group called IT lab administrator and assign those users to it. You can see how easy that particular lab is. So everything here is just talking about what we need to do, create group and members, which is the tax 2. But for the tax 1 is where we create a new user and also we invite a new user. That's the lab 1. So nothing really special. The lab 2A is where we manage the subscription. We talked about subscription. We talked about the fact that for you to be able to work on subscription, you need permissions. Just the same way Sam was trying to create a resource group and it was getting a forbidding error. So you need permission on that particular subscription. And what this lab wants you to do is to implement what we call, based on the hierarchy, Azure hierarchy that we discussed, where we have the management group, the subscription, and within the subscription is where we have the resource group, then the resource itself. Here you're going to be working on creating different resource group, assign or attach subscription to those. Sorry, management group, assign subscription to those management group, then assign role to different, on create. So you assign role, yeah. The first role that you are going to be assigning to, you are going to create a group, and to that group you are going to be assigning role to that group. Now the first role they're going to assign is going to be the virtual machine contributor, which is a built-in role. Then you can create your own role also, which is what the task 3 is all about. Now when you're creating a new role, now you can leverage on the built-in roles and just remove some of the permissions from there, or you want to create this role from scratch. So we are going to be looking at that also. Then the task 4 is going to be activity log. Whatever we've done, we want to check the activities that have been done within the tenant, and that's what this is all about. Same thing goes with, same thing goes with the lab 2A, where we're going to talk about governance. We're going to talk about resource log, tagging, policies, and the likes. You can see. Then the last one, which is the one we've done today, where we're going to be talking about how to manage resources by leveraging on ARM templates. So these 4 labs is what we're going to be looking at next week. It's not going to be a theoretical class. It's going to be a lab session. So we're going to be. So why I'm doing this at this time is the fact that we are done with the identity module. Everything related to identity. And so we need to just look at that before we move on to the next one, which is networking. So we'll also go the same way, talk about these, do these, the virtual networking, intersite connectivity, and once we're done with the network traffic management, we'll look at the labs also. Same thing goes with the compute. The compute, we'll wait until we are done with everything. Then from the 7 to 11, we'll find a day or two, 2 sections to look at this particular one. So that's what we're going to be doing next week. We're going to be looking at all the labs, but I will need one of you guys to be the one to share the screen, and if need be, I will just be explaining. Yeah, Nandi. Ainamdi, I can see your hand up.
Hello, good day, sir.
Oh, okay. How you doing?
Okay, I'm trying to get to the. I'm fine, thank you. I'm trying to get to the link of this document. So I was asking if.
I'm dropping it now. I'll drop it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir.
I'll just drop it on here. Drop it on
The
LinkedIn
chat.
also.
Or maybe on the chat here. Anyway.
Yeah, I'll drop it on the chat. I think I'll drop it on LinkedIn for people on LinkedIn. Yep. If you have got any question, anything, you can let me know.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Okay, sir. But I want to ask another question. Sorry, if you're working as a cloud admin, like, what does it feel like your daily activities, like your most daily activities, like one can encounter or one can come across?
There is no template to that, though.
Okay.
There is no template to that, so it all depends on what you are managing. But the truth is, you want to know your identity very well, because for all applications or for all infrastructures that are within your environment, you still need to be managing the access of the identity to those resources. You understand? So you want to know that very well. You want to know how to manage those resources too, because no way. So it's just you know, understanding everything we have in this particular class. Do you understand? So, because as a cloud engineer, you are going to be leveraging on everything here, everything from identity to resources, from within your resources, virtual network, virtual machine, compute, other compute resources. So everything, and some of the things you will not even find here, like those terraforms, those infrastructure as a code, tool and the like. So you want to really understand. So, and that's why I'm saying there is no template for these. It all depends on what you're actually going on. But once you have a very good understanding, um, I'm not sure you should be expecting. You should be like, oh, what are things that we need to look at? When I'm working here, it will come naturally. Don't worry.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Cool. All right. If there are no other questions, I'm just going to call this a day. So we meet next week. Bye, everyone.